Alright, so today I'm doing a test ride review on the Yamaha XSR155. I am very excited about this as I used to own a Yamaha MT15. For those that follow my channel, you would know that I've done reviews on that motorcycle. So before I continue with this test ride review, I would like to give a shout out to my friend Byron for lending me this motorcycle. Alright, so let's take a look at some specs before we continue. Okay, so for those that were not really able to catch the specs there, I can mention a few of the key features of the XSR155. In terms of the engine, it comes with a liquid-cooled 4-stroke SOC single-cylinder 155cc engine. It can generate up to 19 horsepower and 14.7 Newton-meter of torque. Comes with upside-down forks and hydraulic single disc brakes in the front and the rear. Does not come with ABS. It also comes with LED headlights and taillights. And when it comes to the weight of this motorcycle, I believe it's at 134 kilos wet weight. And for those who didn't catch it, it comes at 162,000 pesos. So in this test ride review, I'll be mentioning the things that I like and not like about the motorcycle and in my basic observations. I'll finish off with the pro and cons of getting this motorcycle, but at the same time you will hear me referencing to the MT15 as I'll be doing some comparisons between the two as well. So the two things I noticed pretty much right away was one, the clutch. Very light and soft, so I think you can ride this motorcycle for a long period of time without your left hand getting tired from using the clutch. And second is the smooth shifting. It's extremely nice and refined, and this remains to be a strength of the Yamaha motorcycles. So that's the same thing I noticed with the Yamaha MT15. Another thing that I like about the XSR155 is that it's very light and nimble. It's easy to ride, easy to maneuver. In terms of the comfortability, I also like the riding position. I feel it's a bit less sporty than the Yamaha MT15, but I might be wrong, but that's my first impression. When it comes to the seat of the XSR155, I find it to be a bit on the harder side. I expected it to be a bit softer. It looks well cushioned when you look at it, but it's harder than I expected. In that respect, it feels very similar to the Yamaha MT15. Now, this is a sporty type of motorcycle, so that might be kind of part of the reason that it's on the harder end, but just a personal preference, I would prefer it to be a bit more cushioned. The reason being, it will be more comfortable to ride at longer durations. So let's move on to one of my favorite things about this motorcycle, which is the aesthetics. I think it's a beautiful and well-designed motorcycle. It blends the retro and modern really well. And the thing that makes this motorcycle very appealing to me is that it's also easy to customize and make it your own. There's a lot of options, and I love the retro modern look of it. So what do you guys think in terms of the looks of the XSR155? Are you a fan of these modern retro inspired motorcycles, or do you prefer them to either be retro looking or modern? Let me know in the comment section. As you can also see, it has a very nice looking round LCD dash. The disadvantage of the dash though is that in certain lighting, as you can see right now, it's hard to see what it says due to the reflection. But overall, I love the design and I think it looks great. So let's talk about the differences between the Yamaha MT15 and the XSR155. Well, to be honest, there are very little differences. Specs wise, 99% they are identical. Of course, there are some minor differences such as the length and the height and stuff like that, but generally it's almost the same. One difference I can mention is the ground clearance. So the XSR155 has a ground clearance of 170 millimeter versus the Yamaha MT15, which has a lower ground clearance of 155 millimeters. Price wise as well, there is a small difference, with the XSR being a bit more pricey at 162,000 with the Yamaha XSR at 159,000. Specs wise, that is actually pretty much the difference. Of course, they're not completely identical on the specs, but it's very close, so I don't think it's worth mentioning in this video. Obviously, I'm just referring to the specs, and because the looks of the motorcycle is completely different, right? You have the MT15 being a modern naked bike, and you have the XSR155, which has the modern retro looks. When it comes to choosing between these two motorcycles, it basically boils down to your personal preference. Do you want a modern looking motorcycle? You go with the MT15. If you want a retro inspired one, you would go with the XSR155. So let's say that you want to get like a retro inspired motorcycle. So what are the other options on the market besides the XSR155? So in the low displacement motorcycle market, if I'm not mistaken, there are not that many options. The first that comes to mind would be the Kawasaki W175. These two motorcycles though are extremely different. One being that the price range, there's a big difference in the price. Second being that the Kawasaki W175 is really a lot more retro overall compared to the XSR155. It's based on an old Barocco engine, which is extremely reliable, but obviously it's not even close as refined as the Yamaha engine. Now, that actually can be part of the charm, right? Because older motorcycles, retro motorcycles, were not that refined, so it can something that you like to add to the overall retro feel. Because the XSR155 definitely does not feel old school when you're riding it. It's really more on the looks. Another motorcycle that comes to mind would be the Husqvarna Svartbilen 200. Other classic inspired motorcycle that comes to mind would be the Bristol Classic 250 and the BR250. What have I missed? Can you list down lower displacement, retro or classic inspired motorcycles? Alright, so let's go through the pro and cons of this motorcycle. When it comes to the power of this motorcycle, the Yamaha 155cc engine has a lot get up and go. I mean, considering the displacement size, you can't really do much better than the engine of the XSR155 or MT15. I'm still very impressed with it. It's nice and cool and very refined, as I mentioned earlier. So let's finish off with the pro and cons. So let's start with the pros. It has a refined and powerful engines for its size. Another pro would be the aesthetics. I think it's minimalistic and beautiful. It works really well, and it's also very customizable. Another pro would be the clutch. It comes with an assist and slipper clutch, which is very easy to use, and you can ride this motorcycle for longer periods of time without getting your left hand tired from all the shifting. So I think this is one of the main pros of this motorcycle. Another pro or benefit of this motorcycle is simply that it's a Yamaha. Now, I prefer not reviewing or judging a motorcycle based on its brand or where it's made. However, we can't really ignore that it's a Yamaha, and Yamaha is known for its reliability as well as good resale value. Alright, so let's move on to the cons. The first thing I would say, which is really the only main con of this motorcycle, and a lot of motorcycles in this range, would be the lack of ABS. I know the argument some of you might have, which be that, well, if I'm an experienced rider, I don't need ABS because I would know how to brake and not brake too hard for the wheel to lock. But I completely disagree on that. Even the most experienced rider can accidentally brake too hard when something unexpected happens. Obviously, the more experienced you are, the less chance for this to happen. However, you would rather have a safety feature in case you need it instead of not having it and then you might need it. I have a feeling though that Yamaha will be adding this to their next version of this motorcycle. I would be very surprised if they didn't. That is honestly the only main con that I see with this motorcycle, but I have a few more, but these are more on nitpicking and not really something major. So one of the things I would mention would be that the dash can be a bit difficult to read at times in certain lightings. So if the sun hits it at a certain angle, it's hard to read. Overall, this is a great motorcycle and a great option for those that want a retro modern motorcycle. So what do you guys think? Please leave your comments in the comment section, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel.